before you start chanting EC-Dub and throwing chairs and lighting tables on fire and asking when New Jack's going to show up and slice somebody up with a fucking knife or jump out of the balcony, calm down. We're not there yet. We won't be there for quite some time, honestly, but I promise we're going to have a fun ride ahead of us as we get there. Because before Extreme Championship Wrestling, there was Eastern Championship Wrestling. Before Paul Heyman became the mad scientist of Extreme, as they would call him, before Joey Styles was screaming, "Oh my God," like somebody had just backed over his fucking mailbox. And before Sandman made his drunken entrance to Metallica while smoking cigarettes, there was a bar in Philadelphia, and a jewelry store owner was trying to run a wrestling show and not lose his ass in the process. He had a roster full of local guys. He had some aging names in the business, some masked journeymen, and more heel managers than a 1986 Coliseum video release. And tonight we're setting the table for all of that so you can understand where ECW started and how ECW started. Brandon, do you know what you've gotten yourself into here?
I'm not sure I'm ready, Gene.
Well, you better get ready because, ladies and gentlemen, this is the ECW Retro Wrestling Review Podcast, Episode 0, setting the table for what's to come for this long journey that we've got that's going to take us from 1993 all the way to 2001.
Canvas blueprints in the dust, back room roaring, broken teeth and rust, chain link press, swing and miss, call it pain, I call it this. Step in, step down, hear that floor shake now, hands up, heads low, something's coming round. Welcome to the wreck. Welcome to the wreck. We came for the wreck. We came for the wreck. Hit me hard.
I'm Gene Jackson, and joining me is your soon-to-be new favorite podcaster, Brandon Wheeler. And there you saw it. Producer Smokey has created what many of my friends that I've shown the preview of that to has said is the greatest intro to a podcast of all time.
Damn
and
right.
that it may be all downhill from here. We may be, we may roll that intro every week, and there's no way we can live up to it. But thank you, Producer Smokey, for at least helping to set the tone for what we're trying to do right here. And again, this is episode 0 because the official podcast watch along will start with episode 1 of 1993 ECW television. So episode 1 of the podcast will coincide with episode 1 of television. But let's be honest, you can't just dive into 1993 ECW television and act like 1992 didn't happen. Now, if you're a hardcore old school ECW fan, don't get mad when I say this, but me and Brandon both agreed we weren't fucking watching 1992 ECW. Like, it's rough. Okay, I'm sorry. Some of you may love it. It's fucking rough, dudes. It really is. But you have to cover it. You have to tell that story to understand where ECW comes from and how we got here. And I secretly started prepping for this project a little over a year ago. I finally got the chance to go to ECW Arena for the first time. I went with Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich, the Memphis Mafia. They were booked on the TWA One and Done event, the big reunion of Tri-States Wrestling. And I got a chance to finally go to Philly and be at the ECW Arena. And I was a huge ECW fan. Now, to be quite honest, we're starting in 93. My fandom in real time picked up in 1995. I had been reading about it in magazines from the beginning, but there was a channel called Sports South that we got in North Mississippi. And ECW came on at 1 a.m. on Friday nights, Saturday morning. And I started watching it. Whatever I was in college at the time, and whatever I was doing, I would try to be in, or at the very least have the old VCR fire up to record ECW. And I remember being in my dorm room. My brother had came up. My little brother, who's 10 years younger than me, had came up to hang out with me one weekend. And he had heard about ECW, and he's like, I want to see this. So me and him sitting in my dorm room. By now, this was the following year. Had been watching it about a year at this point. And the angle where Pitbull #1 had gotten his neck broken, and he's out there with the halo on, and you can see the bolts screwed into his head. Like, this is a legit halo. This isn't a gimmick. And he's out there in the ring with his neck broke, and Shane Douglas grabs him, and he jerks him to one side, he jerks him to the other, and he shoves him down. And the typically rabid Philadelphia ECW arena fans fell silent. And when I was at this event, I'm getting to sit in the dressing room of the ECW arena. I'm sitting in a circle with Shane Douglas, Todd Gordon, Tommy Rich, Gary Wolf, Pitbull #1. I forget who else was around. It was a whole crowd of people. But Shane Douglas is sitting there telling the story. And I'm remembering being in my dorm room with my little brother watching this, going, oh my God. I think that dude's neck's really broke, and he really just threw him to the ground. And Douglas is describing, he's like, of all the things I ever did in my career, he's like, that's the most scared I've ever been. He said, because usually Philadelphia fans, nothing faced them. He said they all fell silent. He said it's that white heat that you heard about. He's like, I had heard about like back in the 60s and 70s and shit, when people would get stabbed and shot, and Ole Anderson's getting sliced open for real heat. And he's like, I didn't know if we was going to get out of the building that night. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, like, I'm in the fucking ECW arena. Listen to Shane Douglas tell the story with Gary Wolf right there. Todd Gordon's right there. It was so fucking surreal. And I was like, dude, I want to cover ECW at some point. But I wasn't just going to come back and just jump into it. Like, I was like, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to study on this. I'm going to prep. And when the time is right, I'll know. And I pitched it out there, and several people jumped on it. And I almost shot myself in the foot with that fucking poll, because people were like, Mid-South, Smoky Mountain. I'm like, there's been 1,000 episodes about Mid-South and Smoky Mountain. No, we're not doing that. And so I just kayfabed the poll. I just took the damn thing down. Reached out to you. You're on board. And
absolutely.
We are, man. And I'm excited to get to do this. And so for this episode, like I said, we're going to kind of go through 1992 and get to ECW. And some of the things that I used for this episode, the notes that we have in front of us here. Number one is Todd Gordon's book, Todd is God, which is, the owner of ECW's account of how this all went down. Scott Williams' book, Hardcore History. John Lister's book, Turning the Tables. A really good podcast from John Lanza called Jovember to Remember. I'm sorry, Joe Lanza. That's why it was called Jovember to Remember. The first 5 episodes of it, which is very detailed, and he knew a lot of things that a lot of other people haven't talked about publicly. So we did reference that. And of course, we went through all the ECW results from 1992, which we'll be going through here. So I just wanted to point that out on the front end. Number one, to give these guys credit for credit is due. And number two, to illustrate that we're not just basing everything that we're going to talk about tonight on this podcast because, I watched the rise and fall of ECW DVD one time, and now I'm a fucking expert. Like, I've read books, conducted my own interviews. I've studied years of results and footage, and shoot interviews, and these books that we're talking about. So we're not just pulling this out of the air, folks. We're actually calling upon people who were there and lived it. And so Philadelphia, I don't know that ECW, what it was or what it came to be, could have happened anywhere else but Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is not a town where a baby face can go out and just slap hands and smile and, say some generic shit like, it's good to in Philadelphia, and think the fans are just going to erupt. Like, this is a town that once pelted Santa Claus with fucking snowballs. You know what I mean? they don't put up with just generic bullshit here. Like,
That's right.
The attitude, they didn't pick up the attitude from the wrestling picked up the attitude from them and worked with that. And so you can't begin to tell the story of ECW without mentioning the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, Joel Goodhart's promotion that he ran, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Sometimes Maryland. So I guess technically it could have been quad states, but that sounds kind of shitty. You know, QWA would have been weird. So we're going to go with Tri-States. And so now we're not going to go deep into that. That's another podcast for another day. That may be for somebody else to do, or it may be for us to do at a later time, but we don't have time to dig in that and do it its justice. But Tri-State was the first ever what would become known as the super indie promotion. You know what I mean, Brandon? Like, where we've got, you know, locals, but then we're bringing in, like, so here's the talent mix of guys that they brought in on some of those shows: Terry Funk, Jerry Lawler, Cactus Jack, Eddie Gilbert, Abdullah the Butcher, the original fucking Sheik, Kevin Sullivan, Sabu, Owen Hart, Austin Idol, Jim Cornette, the Fantastics. And then you had your local flavor like JT Smith, Tony Stetson, Mr. Sandman at the time, Glenn Osborne, Larry Winters, DC Drake. And so they're, again, like what was known, not even known yet, it just became known as the super indie, where you take your locals and you mix in some national names and you bring some guys up from the South. And it caught on. Like, they built a really solid and rabid fan base, and Joel Goodhart was aiming this at like the hardcore fans. When I say hardcore fans, I don't necessarily mean like extreme, you know, like hardcore violence. I just mean like they're not your casual fan. They're the one that is reading the newsletters. They're the ones that's trading tapes, and they're the ones that, I may live in Philadelphia, but I know what the fuck's going on in Japan, and I know what's going on down in Memphis, and I know what's going on in Texas and Florida, and they want to know everything they can know. And so this show spun out of Joel Goodhart having a radio show, a wrestling radio show, which was all like inside stuff. And so he starts running, and the shows kind of get bigger and bigger. He runs like, you know, small shows, but then he would build to these super shows. And, you know, it kind of got bigger and bigger. But here's the thing. That hardcore fan base are rabid. They're loyal. It's not large. So those list of names I named off, and I'm not saying those guys are on every show, but even to have a handful of those guys on every show, you're flying people in, you're getting hotels. They're, you know, they got a pretty big rate. And Joel wasn't like haggling with these guys. It's like, hey, what would it cost for me to bring you in?
Right.
It costs this. All right. that's what we're paying you. And we're going to fly you, and we're going to get you a hotel, and we're going to bring your wife and all this shit. So there was no way, even though he had a loyal fan base, there was no way for these shows to even come near breaking even. So poor Joel's just losing his ass on these things. And so eventually, inevitably, Tri-State fails. Not because they didn't have a loyal fan base, not because they didn't have a good product. It's just financially, it just was not sustainable. It just, you couldn't book these shows. I mean, the last show that he had scheduled was scheduled for January 25th, 1992. It was going to be Winter Challenge 3. Obviously, he had done 2 before it, and those had been some pretty big shows. And this was probably going to be his biggest one yet, as he was set to bring in all Japan talent. I think he was bringing in like Gordy and Williams and Doug Furness and Dan Crawford. There was going to be the generational battle of the Nature Boys, where Buddy Landell was going to wrestle Buddy Rogers on this thing.
How exciting could that have been?
I mean, you know, on paper it sounded great. In theory, but there was already tickets sold. Not as many tickets as he was needing to be able to cover this thing. And so as it got closer and closer and he hadn't hit the goal of how many tickets he needed to sell to really even come close to covering this thing, he goes on his radio show and announces that Tri-States is done. And, you know, there's people who still had tickets that didn't get refunds. There were wrestlers who thought they were still booked. They didn't realize they weren't listening to a radio show in Philadelphia on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. So, you know, yeah, left with a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, you know. And so it's a mixed bag when people look back on Tri-States. Like, there's a lot of fans who just watched the tapes like me and read about it in magazines. Like, man, that was really cool. You know, because it was like Tri-States was like if a wrestling tape trader had won the lottery and just started booking his dream matches every month with no fucking regard to it. Hey, can we make any of this money back? Are we gonna lose our ass on this? It was like, no, just book it and they will come. You know, it was like fill the fucking dreams that we hoped, and that just was not sustainable. Eventually the money goes away. Even if you got backers, if you can't start giving them something, you know, they're like, what are we doing? I can't keep throwing money at this every month. So a lot of sour feelings about Tri-States. And one of the guys who had come on board, like I said, he had some backers. He had some people that was putting money into this for him. One of those guys was Todd Gordon. Todd Gordon was not a wrestling promoter. He ran Carver W. Reed. It was a Philadelphia jewelry store and pawn business. He was a super wrestling fan. He got involved with Tri-State. He started out by doing advertising there. And then, I mean, I'm sure, you know, everybody's seen this play out. He starts advertising. He's like, hey, how can I get involved? Well, we need a ring announcer Saturday night. So he starts ring announcing. Well, I don't know if we're about to do this next show. We're kind of hurting, you know, we don't really have all the money we need. All right, well, what do you need? He starts putting a little money into it. So now he's advertising, he's investing, he's ring announcing. And when the show folded, you take Bob Artis, who was the ring announcer for Tri-State, Larry Winters, who was one of the main local wrestlers there, Steve Truitt, who's a local musician who was Stevie Wonderful. And so these guys get together and they have a meeting with Todd Gordon, and they're like, hey, we don't want this to end. Like, we have found a pocket of wrestling fans here in Philadelphia that are fiercely loyal, that want this. And if somebody can serve it, they're here for it. And so they start deciding, hey, well, how can we keep wrestling going? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to control the budget. If we're going to run a wrestling show, we can't do what Joel has done. We can't let the finances run wild. And we need to come up with a new name, because we don't want people to think this is just Tri-States continued. So there's two different versions. Like Todd Gordon, in his book and the stories he tells, he came up with the name Eastern Championship Wrestling, because he said it sounded like a normal name for a normal company, because he didn't really want to be as wild, because Tri-States was, you know, they had the Eddie Gilbert and Cactus Jack feud. They had Johnny Hotbody diving out of fucking stands and stuff like Cactus Jack too. So like, all right, we're going to, you know, Eastern Championship Wrestling. This sounds like just a nice regional promotion, normal wrestling company. Now, Todd says he came up with that. Stevie Wonderful says that he and Larry Winters came up with ECW in the car on I-95 heading to this meeting. I don't know. People remember things differently. Does it really matter who came up with it? Anyway, we're Eastern Championship Wrestling. We want to differentiate ourselves from Tri-States. So that's what they decide. They're going to be Eastern Championship Wrestling. They know they need to get a couple of names in there, but we can't go crazy like Joel did. We've got to make this sustainable. Are you on board up to now, Brandon? Any questions?
Man, I'm all in.
All right.
No, I did have a quick question about Todd Gordon on your take on I guess Todd's take on the whole thing. Do you think that, what do you think? Do you think Todd wanted to take it in a less extreme? I mean, that's kind of an odd direction to go in right off the bat, thinking that we were trying to go less extreme or less crazy.
I think maybe early on, maybe he did just to differentiate themselves right out of the gate of like, this is not tri-states, because we've seen in the past promoters would have a promotion get deep in debt and they have people coming after them. They got creditors coming after them. They got mafia type people coming after them, whatever the case may be. And they're like, hey, we gotta change the name. And, you know, I'm still going to be behind closed doors. I'll still be running this thing, but we got to we got to have another face of the company over here. So I think he wanted to establish like, hey, this isn't just Joel running promotion through a guy that was helping him before. This is a whole different ball game here. And we'll get into here in a moment kind of how Todd Gordon came into this. So like there's different versions of Todd Gordon depending on who's telling the story, right? Of like who Todd Gordon really was. And so the first version, there's Todd's version. He's the decisive founder, businessman, protector of the company, wanting to do well for these guys who have called upon him to keep wrestling alive in Philadelphia. Version 2, you got the skeptical version. He's a promoter who started out wanting those things, but eventually realized he liked being on camera and he liked being a part of the show. And, you know, just wanted to be one of the boys once things got rolling. And then there's the neutral version that, you know, he's practical businessman who's early ambitious, started out honest. He wasn't looking to start a revolution in the wrestling industry. He just wanted to run a nice local wrestling company that was sustainable for his friends. And honestly, you asked me my thought. I think Todd was a little of all three. He was a businessman that was a big wrestling fan that wanted to keep wrestling alive, and he had become friends with these guys and he wanted to see them have a place to work. And he knew you could not do that with the reckless spending that Joel had been doing.
Right.
And so he came at this, I think, from an honest place. But like so many others before him and after him, once you get in there and you realize like, oh, I like being involved in these angles. I like seeing myself on TV. He quickly starts to pivot from I'm just a honest businessman trying to do right to like, well, I think I could be a star at the same time. We can run a business. There's no reason Todd Gordon can't get over. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's just to help Carver Reed. It's just to help the jewelry business for my family. That's all. So I think both things can be true at the same time, but I think we will see. And as we talk to directly some of these people who were there, and as we hear through other interviews that other people have done, that changes over time. And the Todd Gordon who started Eastern Championship Wrestling and the one who is there as it becomes Extreme once Paul Heyman enters the picture a little ways down the road, two very different guys with different agendas, I think. But first show they did February 25th, 1992. It was called ECW Market Street Mayhem. It was at the original Sports Bar in Philadelphia was the name of the venue. It depends on who you ask. Most people will tell you it was February 25th. If you look at Todd Gordon's book, he says it's February 26th. I think it's just a typo, or not a typo, but just minor discrepancy. But there's like people who've had like heated arguments over this and like are ready to just die over this. I'm like, who gives a shit? 25th, 26th, yeah. February 92. Fucking move on. So that's
35 years ago. Almost.
Yeah. That's what we're going to like. Nothing changes throughout the history of ECW if we, you know, figure out whether it was the 25th now, you know, if it was, they'd been the 26th, actually been the 26th, all this would have went way differently. So 25th or 26th, one of the two. We're at the original Sports Bar in Philadelphia. The very first match in ECW recorded history, Jimmy Jannetty versus Stevie Richards. Some people think that Stevie Richards just came along when Raven was there. No. Stevie Richards was there long before Raven. He's here in the very first match, and the very first match goes to a 20-minute time limit draw. So maybe that does lend a little credence to maybe Todd is trying to dumb this down a little bit and calm things down. However, in these early goings here, Larry Winters is the booker. Second match, Glenn Osborne defeated Crybaby Waldo. We talking about some of these people as we move along here. Crybaby Waldo. Super Destroyer number 1 defeated Michael Bruno. Tony Stetson defeated the Russian Bear, Ivan Koloff, former Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Jeff Royal. That's right. Jeff Royal defeated Max Thrasher. DC Drake and JT Smith wrestled Johnny Hotbody and Larry Winters to a double disqualification. And if you were following along in the after mags back then, if you were in the tape trading scene, DC Drake, JT Smith, Johnny Hotbody, and Larry Winters were names you were definitely familiar with. So again, Stevie Richards, part of the first ECW match, and he will be a key figure in ECW throughout its story. Ivan Koloff is here putting over Tony Stetson. And again, this is a guy who once defeated Bruno Sammartino for the World Wrestling Federation title. Big fucking deal here. Stetson's a local guy. And Todd does see the value in having veterans come in. And maybe that was something else that maybe Joel wasn't as good at either, because a lot of times you had names versus names. Kind of the Abrams thing, two names are wrestling each other. One name beats the other name. Well, that's great, but what does that do for the promotion? Well, here you've got local guy Tony Stetson defeating Ivan Koloff on the very first show. So
yeah, that's big.
That's a wise move on Gordon's part, but actually I guess it's Larry Winters is making this happen. Super Destroyer. When I first looked through the card, and I know Joe Lanza talked about this too, it looks odd because you think of the tag team, the Super Destroyers, like, wow, Super Destroyer 1 gets a singles match win. Well, it turns out what happened was Super Destroyer 2 comes down. They switch. They do the old twin magic gimmick, as Rob likes to call it on the Continental when the Nightmares do it. And it was actually Super Destroyer number 2 that gets the pin. So they're getting heat here with that gimmick right here on the very first card. So the first ECW card looks nothing like the ECW that comes to mind. When you hear the letters ECW, no, there's no Sabu, there's no Dreamer, Raven, not even Shane Douglas yet. It's Jimmy Jannetty, Stevie Richards, Ivan Koloff, Tony Stetson, and let's not forget, Crybaby fucking Waldo is here. And
what a name.
You couldn't do it without him, right? Now, there was their own share of controversy on this first show. Larry Winters, the booker, wanted to do an angle at the end of the main event where, so you have Johnny Hotbody and Larry Winters against DC Drake and JT Smith. JT Smith is an African-American gentleman, considered to be one of the top young stars in Tri-States, and that carries over to ECW. They want to do some kind of convoluted finish where the losers were going to be painted white. And Todd Gordon's like, no, we don't need this kind of racially charged bullshit on our first show. And they go back and forth. And he's like, well, the only way I would agree to do it is if you're going to paint JT Smith white, then you'd have to paint DC Drake black. And then it's kind of equal. And they're like, sure. All right. Yeah, we'll do that. Well, somehow, when it come time for the end of the match, somebody forgot to bring the black paint. They only had the white paint, and only DC Drake. Well, DC Drake did get painted white, but also JT Smith got painted white. And Todd's like, you motherfucker. So he fires Larry Winters as the booker after the very first show. Larry Winters sticks around. He still wrestles, but Todd Gordon says, fuck it. If you want something done, you got to do it right. I mean, you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. He becomes the booker. Todd Gordon has never booked wrestling in his fucking life. He's just been a wrestling fan and he runs a jewelry store, but now he is about to take over the booking.
I think the big mark you're missing here, though, is also a pawn shop. So there's a level of carny that goes along with owning a pawn shop.
That's
So,
right. I don't know why I'm trying to class it up by just mentioning the jewelry store because yes, he is also a pawnbroker. And if you've listened to that Conway Twitty song, Saturday Night Special, you know how shady these guys can be. And if you haven't, pause this podcast, go Google or YouTube Conway Twitty's Saturday Night Special, listen to that story, and then you'd be like, "It's goddamn pieces of shit running these pawn shops." No wonder Todd Gordon is so shady. No, anyway, moving on. So, all right, the cast of characters in 1992 as we start running ECW. Let's run down some of the people who we're going to be hearing in these results. The one key name that is going to be recurring that Todd Gordon, he remembered him as a fan. He had seen him wrestle and was a big fan of his and wanted him to be a part of it. And he was able to get him at a reasonable price. Jimmy Superfly Snuka. And so he wants him to be the top babyface starting out. And he wants him to be the first ECW heavyweight champion. Okay, I guess I get that logic. What are your thoughts on Jimmy Snuka being like the guy we're going to hang our hat on?
Man, I mean, how old was Jimmy at this point? I mean, he had to be late 40s, early 50s?
He's probably mid to late 40s, honestly. Okay. He's one of those guys, he seemed older than he was because he had been around forever.
Yeah,
and
he always kind of looked old.
Kind of took their toll, to say the least.
Yeah.
Now, it wouldn't be as widely known and discussed in 1992, the whole controversy of the alleged, well, if we have to say alleged anymore, they found him guilty. He just couldn't stand trial because he wasn't mentally competent. But the whole story about Miss Argentino being murdered was known amongst the Philly fans because, again, we're the hardcore dirt sheet type, so they know. And there's even a couple. It'll come up later, especially like the interview with Jay Sully that I'll quote from here in a few different episodes. Jay Sully makes it known that there's at least one particular fan who came to every show, and it seemed his only goal was to make sure everybody there knew that Jimmy Snuka was a fucking murderer, and he was going to make it. He was going to voice that at every opportunity.
That's awesome.
And again, that's the downside of being in Philly because they just don't give a fuck.
That's awesome.
Yeah, kudos to that guy. JT Smith, the poor gentleman who got painted white on the first show. Former Tri-State champion. He was pretty much identified in Tri-State as the best young local prospect they had. And so Todd is wanting to carry that forward and wanting to do well with him here, which is why he didn't want him painted fucking white on the first main event of the first show. And Larry Winters had other plans. Also, Mr. Sandman, not yet the cane swinging, Zubaz wearing Sandman that you all know and love. This is him when he was still a surfer, somewhat. We'll talk about that as we go along. How Jim Fullington come about wearing a wetsuit, carried a fucking surfboard. He would do that in Memphis. That's coming up in our 91 show that we're doing there here in the next couple of weeks. Spoiler alert. Sorry, BT, you're not here. Yeah, Surfer Sandman is going to be showing up in Memphis. That's something else. We got Tony Stetson. He's a guy from South Philly, local babyface, kind of a brawler type, but he was pretty popular. And, of course, like I said, he gets the win over Ivan Koloff. He's going to be feuding with Sal Balomo. We'll talk about him in a moment. Glenn Osborne was a guy. He was another big tri-state holdover that did well there. He's an early television champion here. He's one half of the tag team Nightbreed with Max Thrasher. Max Thrasher is said to have only been booked early on because he provided the ring. And there seems to be some truth to that because the minute they find another ring, he is never on another ECW show ever again. So take that as you will. Then you had the Super Destroyers. Of course, Famously, the Super Destroyers had been Bill Irwin and Scott Irwin back in the world-class days in Mid-South and different places, Georgia. Of course, by this point, Scott Irwin has passed away. Bill Irwin is wild. Bill Irwin, he's a cowboy now. And so this version is AJ Petruzzi, who was a well-known enhancement guy for the WWF, which is a politically correct way to say jobber. But we won't use that word here until ECW becomes politically incorrect and damn proud of it, and then we'll call him whatever the fuck we want to call him.
There we go.
His partner is Doug Stahl, who was a big old dude. He was substantially bigger than AJ Petruzzi, but once we get to the TV, you'll see that neither Jay Sully nor Stevie Wonderful can ever tell these guys apart, even though the one guy's like nearly a foot taller and about 50 pounds heavier. But we're just going to get over that. Hey, they got that mask gimmick. We don't know who's who. They can do anything at any time. Another big name, Don Morocco, former WWF superstar, former Intercontinental Champion, lends instant credibility to the promotion. He's going to hold the ECW title in late 92. Now, so here's the thing. Here's the fun thing about Don Morocco, because you're thinking, well, all right, we said Todd's not going to spend too much money, but he's paying for Superfly Snuka. He got a deal on him. He's closer by than most as far as travel. Ivan Koloff, he got a pretty good deal on Ivan Koloff. Don Morocco's wife works for an airline. Now, Don Morocco lives in Hawaii. That's a real thing. But his wife works for an airline, and he flies for free. Don Morocco is also great friends with Bob Ortiz, who is the ring announcer and also one of the guys who helped start this thing. So Don Morocco tells Todd Gordon, hey, I'll fly myself in for free. I'll sleep over at Bob Ortiz's house. So all you have to do is pay my rate, which I'll give you a discounted rate, which was like $400 or some shit.
That's
so
awesome.
Todd's like, great, we're going to book Magnificent Morocco. Also, Wild Man Sal Balomo. Now, if you look at Sal Balomo here in 1992, and then the guy who was doing jobs in WWF several years earlier, you would never know it was the same guy. He's put on like 150 pounds and a ton of hair and a beard. And I mean, he goes from just looking like some average Italian guy to like Norman the Lunatic on steroids or something. It's wild. But he's local, he's affordable, and he's lends a little bit of name value. So here he is. He's going to feud with Tony Stetson pretty soon. Larry Winters, well known in this area in the Northeast. He's the booker for one show, and then he's heel early on. Eventually, he's going to turn babyface after losing the booking job. And of course, you're going to hear names like DC Drake. The Pitbulls are here pretty early. Tommy Cairo is a name you're going to hear a lot. Damian Stone, who would eventually go on to be Little Guido. Metal Maniac is here, who has his job because he's Jimmy Snuka's handler. He's a guy that Jimmy Snuka trained. And then once he trained him, Metal Maniac started hauling him to shows, and it became that, we've all heard the deal. Like, hey, you want to book Jimmy Snuka, you got to book Metal Maniac, because Metal Maniac's his ride. Most of the time, he's going to want to wrestle Metal Maniac. And so Metal Maniac, you'll hear in the Jovember to Remember shows, and you'll hear on other podcasts a lot that he was a bit of a laughing stock in the wrestling business. He still, to this day, I think, still works some. The most famous Metal Maniac story that people love to tell. All right, Metal Maniac gets booked on a show down in Texas to wrestle Kerry Von Erich. So he goes down. He has a match with Kerry Von Erich. Kerry Von Erich, big TV star. Metal Maniacs watched him on World Class for years on ESPN. Big fucking deal. He wrestled Kerry Von Erich.
Yep.
But this is back in the day where you didn't approach another wrestler in the locker room, take a picture with him. You'd be made fun of. So Metal Maniac thinks about it. He's like, yeah, man, I'd be pretty fucking humiliating for me to go over and ask Kerry Von Erich to take a picture of me in the locker room. But better plan is they have their match. There's one more match, and then there's an intermission. And there's a line at intermission for fans to take their picture with Kerry Von Erich. And at the end of that line is the Metal Maniac, who hands $5 to a lady and proceeds to take a fucking Polaroid with the guy he just wrestled.
That's awesome.
That's the less embarrassing option than asking him in the locker room. And if you don't think that guy hasn't heard about that every day of his life since.
Oh, man. You said he's still in the business. He's probably still hearing about it.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure guys are like, hey, here's the finish to the match. If you want to just go ahead and give me the $5 now, we can take the picture back here so you don't have to stand in line. I know you're getting pretty old. I know your knees aren't what they used to be. Let's just go ahead and get it. Grab your phone. So a few other names to run through real quick. Nikolai Volkov makes some appearances here. The former World Tag Team Champions, of course, with the Iron Sheik. King Kaluha is here. Peaches, who is Mr. Sandman's wife / valet. Manager Hunter Q. Robbins III, who, when we get to the first couple of television tapings where Terry Funk is an announcer, he will insist on referring to him as Hunter Q. Robbins III and will refuse to call him anything else. Then, of course, you got Stevie Wonderful, you got Devious Don E. Allen, and you got the Cosmic Commander, who is a manager who's a part of the local punk scene, and he is their version of the Grand Wizard, and he is something else. So we'll be seeing him. He'll be managing Sal Palomo. And if ECW didn't have anything else, boy, did they have the managers. They had Hunter Q. Robbins. They had Stevie Wonderful had been a manager before he started doing color commentary. Donnie Allen was a manager. You had Cosmic Commander. You had wrestlers who would wrestle and they would manage people. Like, I don't know what the deal was, but Todd thought every fucking heel needed a manager, and he made sure they had it. And so, again, names, he's booking them, but he's not blowing his wad on names. Ivan Koloff is close enough to drive. He's cutting him a good deal, and he's putting over anybody Todd wants him to put over. He's going to put him over. Snuka, he's a big name, but he's pretty close. Metal Maniac's driving him in. Metal Maniac may be paying Jimmy Snuka just so he can ride to the show with him and wrestle him. Who knows? Maybe all he's got to do is take a picture with him every show. We don't know for sure what the deal was. We talked about the brother deal that Don Morocco had gave him. Sal Palomo's local at this point. He's living in Philly. There's the bizarre one-off where Tatsumi Fujinami wrestles on an ECW show in his street clothes. And so, as Joe Lanza explained on his show, Fujinami had come in May of 92 to do Wrestle War 92, where he wrestled Flair famously, where it was the rematch from the match in Japan. And so I forget who it was that reached out to Todd and said, hey, Fujinami is going to be flying back to Japan, but before he does, he wants to hit a couple of other independent promotions. We got a Japanese photographer here. He's going to be taking some pictures of him for Japanese magazines. Plus, we're going to get local photographers to take pictures for the American magazines. And we want it to seem like he did a whole tour of America, not just came here and did the WCW show. It's like, so could you do something with him on your show? And Todd's like, well, sure, but what would it cost? And they said nothing. Todd's like, sold, bring him on. So he comes to a show there at the bar. So here he goes. He's main eventing Wrestle War 92 for the World Championship with Ric Flair. And then he's at the sports bar in Philly. And so they bring in WWF jobber Chris Duffy, who was doing jobs at the time. And they dress him up like a bodyguard. And he supposedly works for the bar. And he's trying to kick Tatsumi Fujinami out because he thinks he's some kind of Japanese riffraff. He probably thinks he's part of the Yakuza or some shit. He's trying to boot him out. And they get cross. And so how do you settle things? You have an impromptu match, brother. And Tatsumi Fujinami defeats the bodyguard, a.k.a. Chris Duffy, in his one match in ECW history. But forever and ever in history, it says, former IWGP heavyweight champion and briefly WCW champion Tatsumi Fujinami won a match against the Bouncer in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. So there you go. March and April of 92. You got the next couple of shows there on March 24th. A couple of the key matches there. You had DC Drake and JT Smith defeated Johnny Hotbody and Larry Winters, of course, getting revenge for painting poor JT White. Ivan Koloff gets a win over Tony Stetson in a Russian chain match. Of course, that's going to be a feud there for a little while. Tony Stetson and Koloff are going to swap some wins back and forth, and that's the gimmick. You know, Ivan Koloff, master of the Russian chain match. So while Tony Stetson may get the best of Koloff in some matches, you're not going to beat him in a fucking Russian chain match, Brandon.
Right.
Come on. This is goddamn Russian Bear. So
that's a lot different than the Berenstein Bears.
Yes. Yeah. This ain't the fucking Memphis Wrestling Tomorrow or whatever Bear. You know, this is an actual tough
A real bear.
A real bear. Just like we're going to be hearing pretty soon here. They've got a guy called the Kodiak Bear. And, you know, I have to imagine if the Kodiak Bear wrestled Crybaby Waldo, it'd be one of them bangers like the kids say these days, whatever the fuck that means. I don't really know. I'm just trying to sound cool. So then we crowned the first ECW champion April 25th at the Tabor Youth Association, Philadelphia. Yes, the very prestigious Tabor Youth Association. I think perhaps Bruno had a couple of his big wins there. Now listen to the interesting way, Brandon, that they did this, and tell me if you ever heard this done before. What they did to establish the two top contenders, they have two battle royals on the same show. The winner of the first battle royal is going to wrestle the winner of the second battle royal, number 1 and number 2 contenders, and then the winner is going to be the champion. Now here's the fun part. You assume, all right, well, under those circumstances, that'd have to be 2 different battle royals with 2 different sets of wrestlers competing. No, other than the guy who won the first one, Sal Balomo, it's the same motherfuckers in the second battle royal.
That's ridiculous.
So couldn't you have just had one battle royal and the last 2 guys left wrestle each other? Instead, you have 2 separate battle royals of the same people, and Sal Balomo wins one, Jimmy Snuka wins the other, and then I spoiled this earlier. Jimmy Snuka defeats Salvatore Balomo, become the very first ECW heavyweight champion. Snuka, okay, he's a logical choice. He's the biggest star we have right now. Sure, let's put the belt on him. How do we make this mean something, Brandon? How do we make this the most that we can make it? Well, on April 25th, let's put the title on Jimmy Snuka. And on April 26th, let's let Johnny Hotbody beat him for that same title, because that's going to be the rub for Johnny Hotbody. He beat Jimmy Snuka. But, yeah, he beat Jimmy Snuka, who had held the belt for 24 hours.
24 hours.
So
it's ridiculous.
Todd realizes afterward, hey, maybe I pulled the trigger a little too fast on that title switch. So, you know, bro, he had a Vince Russo moment there.
Well, I mean, on paper it sounds good, you know, but the next day, like,
yeah, if me and you sit down and I'm like, hey man, I want to put the title on Jimmy Snuka because he's the biggest star, and you're younger than me, so you're like, all right, Gene, I get where you're coming from. But in the end, we need to get one of the young guys needs to get a rub out of this. So what we need to do, put the title on Jimmy Snuka to establish the title, and then we'll put the title on Johnny Hotbody, and that'll help establish Johnny Hotbody. But hey, man, I got somewhere to be this weekend, so I'm not going to be here. But I'll hook up with you next weekend and see how it goes. And the next weekend, you're like, hey, Gene, how'd it go? Like, it went great. Friday night, we put the belt on Snuka just like we said. And then I took your suggestion, and on Saturday night, I put the belt on Johnny Hotbody. And you're like, you stupid motherfucker. Like, no, not the next night. What are you doing? But that's what we did. But quickly we realized, all right, maybe that wasn't a great idea. But we learned from our mistake. We're not going to have Johnny Hotbody lose it back to Snuka the next weekend, because then it would feel like we're just hot shot and just playing hot potato with the ECW title that's just been established. We didn't even have an ECW title last week. Now it's changed hands twice in 24 hours. So May 25th, Johnny Hotbody defends it against Jimmy Janetti. Because, he's not a big star, but he's the same last name as a guy who's used to tag
Up
with
north.
a big star. He used to tag with a guy who's a pretty big deal. So then you've got on that same card, JT Smith and Mr. Sandman go to a double count out. That's the card where Tatsumi Fujinami beat the Bouncer. And so we've got JT Smith and Mr. Sandman in a hot feud here because JT Smith is our top young babyface prospect, and we're wanting to try to make Mr. Sandman a heel. And we jump ahead to June 23rd. We've got a heavyweight champion. We need some tag champions, Brandon. So we look down the card. Who we gonna put the belts on? We have a tournament.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, so we're gonna have a tournament. You're looking at the roster. Who are you thinking to put these tag belts on?
I mean, if it was me, I would say the Super Destroyers. I mean, they're the big guys. They're the obvious dominant. I mean, it makes the most sense. Right off the bat, with no storylines or no backing.
Well, sir, you should be running a jewelry store / pawn shop because that's exactly what Booker Todd Gordon did. He put the tag team titles on the Super Destroyers. They defeated Glenn Osborne and Max Thrasher because we're still using his ring for right now. And they are the first ever ECW tag team champions. And skip ahead to July and August. We go to the Chestnut Cabaret. Snuka's back. He's wanting some revenge. He wants a rematch for the ECW title. But first, Super Destroyers retain against Glenn Osborne and Max Thrasher. Tommy Cairo defeats Damian Stone, the future Little Guido. Mr. Sandman defeats babyface Larry Winters. And oh my God, Superfly Jimmy Snuka has defeated Johnny Hotbody to regain the ECW heavyweight title. So we held out. We waited till July before we pulled the trigger and put the belt back on Snuka. And July the 15th, we got a battle of two Russians here. Nikolai Volkov defeats Vladimir Markov, who I'm guessing you are probably more Russian than whoever Vladimir Markov is. Some guy probably won a raffle to be the Russian of the night. JT Smith defeats King Kalua, who was a big independent guy up in that area back then. Back then, like when Metal Maniac wasn't wrestling Jimmy Snuka, he was probably wrestling King Kalua. Like they were married. You'll see those names a lot. Salvatore Bellomo defeats Tony Stetson in a Falls Count Anywhere match, and Jimmy Snuka retains, defending against Mr. Sandman. Chestnut Cabaret was supposed to be a big night for them. It was supposed to be kind of a turning point for them, and it turned into a fucking disaster because they did not learn. So Todd started selling tickets, and they did not find out until right before the show that venue was licensed as a bar and could not let anyone in under the age of 21. And Todd had to refund half the tickets they had pre-sold. So the crowd was this absolutely minuscule. Because even people who hadn't prepaid tickets showed up, got told, hey, you got your kids with you. You can't come in. Oh, what am I supposed to do? Fucking leave them in the car? Like, all right, we got to go. So people are just turning away in droves. And so it was so bad that at the end of the night, as Todd Gordon was paying everybody their guarantees, he goes to pay JT Smith. And JT Smith, who needed the money, he wasn't doing well at the time. JT Smith's like, look, man, I want this thing to work. Just keep my money. And Todd's like, no, man, you wrestled. You need to get no, please. Just keep the money, man. I want this thing to keep going. I want it to work. Just hang on to my money. And so Todd remembers that. And shortly thereafter, he realizes that JT's in a situation. He needs money. He needs a better job. Todd needs somebody to work at the jewelry store / pawn shop. And he's like, hey, a guy who turned down money that was rightfully owed to him and insisted on not taking it, that's a pretty honest fucking dude. That's a guy that I can probably trust with diamonds and pawn jewelry. I'm gonna give him a job. So JT Smith takes a job from Gordon that he keeps for years after that. He becomes an associate of Todd Gordon, and he's kind of more locked in more than ever at this point. So that's a little fun fact there. August 12th, we crown our first ever ECW television champion. Now, that is very interesting. Brandon, do you know why it's interesting that we crowned a ECW television champion?
What TV channel is this on, Gene?
Exactly. We have a TV champion, and we don't have fucking TV.
Wow.
So that's, I mentioned earlier, a lot of this was like Field of Dreams mentality. Maybe that was the deal. Like, hey, we don't have TV. But if we had a TV champion, surely TV would rear its head soon. So I guess that's the theory. But hey, the guy who was ECW champion, who defeated Jimmy Snuka 24 hours after he won it, who had dropped the title back to Snuka, he defeats Larry Winters to become the first ever ECW television champion. Jimmy Snuka retains the title against Super Destroyer #1 by disqualification. Salvatore Bellomo versus Tony Stetson in a lumberjack match ends in a no contest. So sounded a little 91 USWA-ish there. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I thought Todd was booking this, but it sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like somebody, Eddie Marlin may have come up here and put some of this together.
Helped out.
So there's a funny story about a Super Destroyer Snuka match that we'll talk about when we get there. But just kind of keep that in mind as we move forward. August 22nd, King Kalua wins a battle royal to earn a title shot against Snuka, which he would then lose. JT Smith defeats the Sandman. Tony Stetson defeats Sal Bellomo in a loser leaves town match. So Sal Bellomo is going to leave. But will he stay gone? We'll see. Because it seemingly in early ECW, the loser leave town rule meant, hey, go out behind the building, count to 10. We'll see you next month. So like their loser leave town steps did not stick in early ECW at all. We get to September and October of 92. Here's the one I'm talking about. Jimmy Superfly Snuka versus Super Destroyer #1 in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And at this particular venue, there's a pool inside the building. And so Snuka comes to, this is a story that Joe Lanza told again. I want to mention here because it's just fun. So Snuka goes to Super Destroyer. He's like, brother, I want to end the match, the Falls Count Anywhere match in the pool. So Super Destroyer 1's like, this is Jimmy Snuka. I want to tell him no. He's like, all right, man. Yeah, we can do that. We can definitely do that. So he gets down to the end of the match, and he's supposed to throw Snuka out of the ring, and then he's going to follow him out, and then they're going to end up in the pool. So he tosses Snuka out of the ring. Snuka's, kind of staggering around down there. He's selling. And he gets looking around like, where the fuck's Super Destroyer? Well, he looks up in the ring. Super Destroyer is sitting on his ass in the ring, unlacing his boots, taking his wrestling boots off.
Not going to get my gear, brother.
Exactly. He rolls out of the ring. They do the spot. And afterwards, they're like, the fuck were you doing taking your boots off? He's like, I'm ruining my damn $400 wrestling boots in a swimming pool. They're like, then don't agree to do the spot. They're like, but it's Jimmy Snuka. Like, well, then get your boots fucked up. He's like, no. So, yeah. So nothing gives away a pool spot like the guy stopping to unlace his boots and take them off just before spontaneously they end up in the pool. I don't know. That's such a 92 ECW thing to happen.
I guarantee it.
So September 30th, we got a couple of major title changes here. The television title has become vacant because Johnny Hotbody is injured and can't defend the title. So they have a contenders match where Glenn Osborne defeats Mr. Sandman to become the ECW television champion. And on this same night, much like he had done in intercontinental title matches in Madison Square Garden, Don Morocco defeats Jimmy Snuka to win the ECW heavyweight title. So right now, our ECW title history goes Jimmy Snuka, Johnny Hotbody, Jimmy Snuka, Don Morocco. That's not bad, right? You know, I'm impressed with that. So Morocco is the world champion, and October 2nd and 3rd, Morocco retains against Nikolai Volkov. Snuka's after Morocco. He wants his title back. We still got the Sandman and JT Smith having issues. Terry Taylor is brought in. He loses to Tony Stetson. So we're trying to get Tony Stetson over the best as we can. Stevie Wonderful loses a loser leave town match. So no more Stevie Wonderful, right? I think we know better. October 24th, Todd Gordon decides to make a bold move. The Super Destroyers retain the titles against a team known as the Cream Team.
I sure thought I was misreading that.
No, I think that's one of the many nicknames of our friends over on the World Class show. I think they like to call it the Cream Team. Yeah. Not publicly. That's just something they call each other.
In private.
In their privates. Tony Cairo defeats Ivan Koloff in a Russian chain match. So he one-ups Tony Stetson. Tony Stetson pinned him in a regular match, lost the Russian chain match. Tommy Cairo's like, nope, I beat his ass in a Russian chain match. Don Morocco retains the title against former champion Jimmy Snuka. Glenn Osborne retains against Max Thrasher because we're still using his ring. JT Smith and Tigra defeats Sandman and Peaches. So that's a mixed tag team match there. And then the big angle. After losing to Morocco, Jimmy Snuka snaps and just loses his shit. He attacks Todd Gordon. He attacks a bunch of other wrestlers. He lays out ring announcer Bob Ortiz, and he tells stately Wayne Manor, the heel announcer, to exit the ring, and he does. So on the Joe-Vember to Remember episode 3, he kind of recaps this whole Snuka turn here, and this was a big angle for him right here. And this is one of the times where Todd Gordon it's really obvious that he wants to be a part of this, you know, because, oh my God, he attacked Todd Gordon, you son of a bitch, you know. So this leads to a big angle here where your top angle is heel Jimmy Snuka against Todd Gordon, owner of the company, our beloved hero. So, you know, we took Jimmy Snuka from aging, big name, babyface champion to angry, pissed off legend who's trying to murder the promoter, much like he allegedly murdered his girlfriend in a hotel room, which is that's probably the best use for Jimmy Snuka 92, right? I mean, he's not having.
Yeah, no, I agree.
He's not having classic matches. So
absolutely?
We want to do something like, what's the most believable thing that could happen, Brandon? Well, what if we were to think he's going to kill the promoter? Like, I would buy that. So
yeah,
that's where we're going with this. November and December of 92, Johnny Hotbody defeats Glenn Osborne by disqualification. He's back now. He's trying to get his TV title. Mr. Sandman defeats Don Morocco to win the ECW Heavyweight Championship. Now, another story that Joe Lanza told that has gone around. I tried to get Bay Ragney to sign off on this, and the interview I did with him recently that'll be popping up as a bonus episode next week. He said he couldn't substantiate this, but he definitely believes it's true. So early on, when Johnny Hotbody beats Jimmy Snuka, the original plan, allegedly, Mr. Sandman was supposed to be the one who was going to win the title from Jimmy Snuka on night 2 after he wins the title. But Mr. Sandman, who's pretty new in the business at that point, is going around telling everybody, I'm going to beat Jimmy Snuka for the fucking title. And Stevie Wonderful goes back and tells Todd Gordon, like, hey, your boy Sandman is telling everybody you're putting the title on him. And so Gordon goes to Sandman. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? I can't put the title on you now because you're telling everybody you're going to win it. I'm going to look like an asshole. All the boys are I'll be a laughing stock. So I can't put the title on you. And Sandman's like, what the fuck? And he's like, I'll put it on you eventually, but I can't put it on you now. And they pivot to Johnny Hotbody. So, boy, in the big scheme of things in ECW history, it would have looked better if Sandman had been the second champion,
Absolutely.
just because of what he goes on to be. But according to legend, because of Stevie Wonderful, he didn't win the title there. And supposedly there was like heat with Sandman towards Stevie Wonderful after that. And yeah, probably so.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, rightfully so. So now Mr. Sandman, Surfer Sandman, is the ECW champion. And again, we're not to every time, if you're listening to this and you're a longtime ECW fan, every time I say Sandman, you're picturing, what you're picturing right now. You're picturing the guy with the kendo stick and the fucking baggy pants and the t-shirt and banging a beer can into his head until he bleeds. No, that's not the champion right now. That's not who we got. We got a guy with a surfboard in one hand, belt in the other. And so that's where we're going with the title, and we're running with the Snuka and heel Todd Gordon storyline. Todd Gordon finds Jimmy Snuka and his manager Hunter Q. Robbins III, as Terry Funk would say, although he's not here to say it yet, pays his fines for him, and they get it to be associated. So November 28th.
That's awesome.
We're getting ready to shoot a pilot now. We've got the TV title. We need the TV to go with it. So as we head into our big TV pilot, we're trying to get onto Sports Channel Philadelphia. So Sandman's a champion, Snuka's a heel. We got a big angle coming up with Rockin' Rebel and the Sandman. I don't know what you know about Rockin' Rebel, but there's going to be a story to tell about him soon enough. So as we get to the pilot, the commentary team. So in the meantime, we've shot some things that weren't on television, like of any substantial note. Like it's been on like, what do you call that? Local TV shit. The
like cable access.
Cable access. Thank you. That's what we're looking for there. They've done some cable access stuff. They shot some home video stuff. And for those, we've had a revolving door, or as Joe Lanza says, a carousel of announcers. And so the first announcer, and we've talked about this when we weren't recording, and it's still just floors me. Dick Graham, who was the announcer for WWF for the Spectrum shows, calling, some of the biggest matches in the world, is in the bar calling ECW matches next to stately Wayne Manor, who's the heel magazine writer. And they're a team for a little bit. And then Bob Smith from Pro Wrestling Illustrated comes in, and he's with stately Wayne Manor. And then they're gone. And then Stevie Wonderful, who's just lost a Loser Leave Town match, is inexplicably back with no explanation as to why. And Jay Sully. Do you know who Jay Sully is, where he comes from?
No, sir, I sure do not.
And no one else did either. And the reason why... So the story goes, and I did not know this until I listened to an interview that Bay Ragney, a.k.a. Chubby Dudley, a.k.a. Easy Rider, coming up in the first episode. He did an interview with Jay Sully about 2 years ago. And so I never heard this until Jay Sully said this, and Bay said this is absolutely true. They had gotten Jody Hamilton, the assassin, as was going to be the replacement for Bob Smith. And they shot a couple of matches with him. And they go back into the dressing room in a panic. And they're like, he fucking sucks. Like, Jody Hamilton is an awesome wrestler. He does great promos. He can't do commentary. This is fucking terrible. Jay Sully is a super fan from the area. He went to the tri-state shows. He had befriended Joel Goodhart. He became friends with Todd Gordon going to the tri-state shows, and he would go into Todd's store. He would he was just heavily involved in the local scene. So he is there at the show when this is going on, where they decide, hey, Jody Hamilton's not our guy. So they go and to the back and they're like, we've got to do something. This guy's not working out. So Stevie Wonderful suggests, hey, Jay's here. Let's give Jay Sully a shot. And so they put him on the mic next to Stevie Wonderful. Todd was happy with it. They send the pilot to Sports Channel Philadelphia. They give it the green light. And now ECW is going to be going on TV for Sports Channel Philadelphia, and the broadcast team is going to be Jay Sully and Stevie Wonderful.
Go to a break now.
Let's go to a break. Let's.
Hey, everybody, I'm Gene Jackson, and I want to introduce you to the Retro Wrestling Archive Podcast Network and the great pro wrestling nostalgia podcast we bring, including the Retro Wrestling Review Series covering the USWA, Memphis Power Pro Wrestling, Continental Championship Wrestling, and we've just added World Class Championship Wrestling, and now ECW. Plus great interview shows like Beyond Wrestling with Rob Held, where the stories go beyond the ring. Then there's Dangerous Conversations with the legendary Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich. Plus, don't miss special live streams like Live from the Archive and Arc of an Angle. And the Retro Wrestling Archive Network is growing. We're proud to feature the affiliate shows like STS Pod, The Hang, Classic Pro Wrestling Talk, Get Your Bell Rung, and even more great shows are coming soon. If that's not all, join the Retro Wrestling Archive Patreon for exclusive bonus content, early podcast releases, special extras, and access to a Google Drive that is absolutely busting at the seams with territory wrestling history, including our legendary Memphis Mega Folder. Podcast, interviews, watch-alongs, live streams, YouTube, Patreon, territory wrestling history. It's all waiting for you at RetroWrestlingArchive.club, where we're preserving pro wrestling history daily. Don't just remember it, relive it. So we're getting picked up by Sports Channel, which brings us into our final show of 1992, December 19th, 92. Sandman defeats Rockin' Rebel by disqualification to retain the ECW title. Glenn Osborne retains the TV title. The Hell Riders, EZ Rider and HD Rider, defeat the Super Destroyers by disqualification, so the Super Ds retain. JT Smith wins a Battle Royal. And the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith is on the card, defeating Jimmy Superfly Snuka. So, wow, what a main event that is for a 1992 era ECW show. And that's how 1992 ends, with Sandman, Glenn Osborne, and the Super Destroyers as the champions. ECW is going to be going on TV soon. And we've got our commentary team locked in now by accident. Jay Sully and Stevie Wonderful is going to be the voices of this thing. If you want to go back and see some of 1992, and honestly, you probably don't. But if, some people are hardcore, it's kind of hard to find really all that's out there. There's a best of ECW 1992 Volume 1 and Volume 2. They're on YouTube. You can find them pretty easy. That TV pilot is on YouTube. You can find it pretty easy and in pretty good quality. So that's Volume 1, 2, and 3. And then there's a Volume 2, The Best of Jimmy Snuka, which I haven't found. I don't know. It's not on YouTube. I'm sure there's some tape trader somewhere that's got it, but I've never seen it. I've never heard of anyone who has. So there's those three, though, before the network disappeared with all the, Netflix got part of it, and part of it's going on YouTube. And if you have a VPN, you can get parts of it in different places. It was on the WWE network up until they pulled everything down. And that's why it's so readily available on YouTube, because some people can just upload whole ass episodes from the WWE network on YouTube and apparently have no issue. There's a channel on YouTube right now that has 75 to 80% of everything, like territory wise, that was on YouTube, and they're still up and going. Meanwhile, I can share a fucking podcast that's got a 30-second clip from WWF, and I get a copyright strike for a Power Pro episode that shows coming soon, Kane. And it's a 30-second clip as the entrance, and I'm getting nailed. Meanwhile, this guy's got an entire 4 years of fucking Mid-Atlantic and all the
That's crazy.
Mid-South wrestling and nothing, but good for him. But yeah, so you're not really going to be able to find video of some of these big moments we talked about. The full heel Snuka turn is not out there that I know of. None of that public access stuff's really out there. The Dick Graham commentary of just him on commentary by himself is not out there. So if you come across some of it, grab it up.
Send it our way.
Yeah, send it our way. We probably won't watch it, but we'll say we got it anyway. So to kind of wrap up 1992, here's what 1992 is not, Brandon. It's not the ECW most fans remember. It's not Paul Heyman's ECW. It's not Joey Styles. It's not Sabu. It's not the ECW arena cult yet. It's not the polished TV product with the Pulp Fiction promo things at the end. It's 1992 ECW is Todd Gordon learning how to be a promoter, trying to learn how to not lose money, trying to survive in Philadelphia after the collapse of Tri-State. Local guys getting a chance to be more of the stars because those Tri-State shows were so dominated by the bigger names they were bringing in. It kind of pushed those guys down the undercard, and these guys are getting a chance to shine a little bit more than they did. It's them getting a TV pilot, and by all accounts, I'm super excited for this bonus show to come out next week that I did with Bay Ragney. The first half of it, we talked a lot about the Tri-States reunion show, and that's interesting. I think people will want to hear that.
Yeah.
But the second half, he's very honest about, in the moment, all those guys thought they were ready and they should be there, and they were pretty salty about when Eddie Gilbert came in and starts cutting people and everything. But in reality, he's like, you go back and look at that pilot sucked. He's like, the pilot was terrible. He said, and even the first few months of the TV show aren't great, so I think a lot of those guys have a little more realistic view. Some of them don't. Some of them are pretty fucking salty to this day of how things are going to go for them, and we'll call that as it comes along. So the bridge that gets us to 1993, January 23rd, 1993, there's a big co-promotion that Todd Gordon does with the WWA with Dennis Corluzza and Larry Sharp. It's called Battle of the Belts. And there had been tension with Dennis Corluzza and Joel Goodhart, Tri-State, going back for quite a while. Now, this thing draws 670 fans. It's Eddie Gilbert's there. Terry Funk's there. Woman is there. The main event of this show was Eddie Gilbert versus Terry Funk. Now, what this really does for ECW, it's at this event that Todd Gordon gets the opportunity to talk with Eddie Gilbert. He offers Eddie Gilbert the booking job, and he takes it. And he gets an opportunity to sit down with Terry Funk and gets Terry Funk on board. And he's another key component to this. While Terry Funk's not a booker, if you got Terry Funk on your roster, that's instant credibility with most any fan, especially the type of fans you got in Philadelphia, the tape trading, newsletter reading, quote unquote hardcores. So Battle of the Belts, while again, overall, it's not a good show, that video is on YouTube, and it's just a single cam from the audience, one side of the ring. I've never been able to sit all the way through it. I have fast forwarded and watched the Eddie Gilbert Terry Funk match. I've also watched this show. This show contains one of my favorite stories that I've ever heard in my life, and it's the reason I saw. To be honest, it was the reason I sought this show out more so initially than the Eddie Gilbert Terry Funk match. So during the day, they had a big convention. And then that night they had this Battle of the Belts show. But during the day, there was a lot of people on this convention who weren't on the actual wrestling show. One of the people who were at the convention was Kerry Von Erich. Now, if you think of the timing of this is Kerry Von Erich's not long for this world at this point. Right. He's in pretty bad shape. He's on drugs. Okay. So they were supposed to have a woman, Nancy Sullivan, was supposed to have a match where Kevin Sullivan was taking on somebody. I don't remember who the fuck it was. But anyway, all day long, Kevin's at the convention. He's supposed to be in this match. And then right before the convention ends, Kevin Sullivan gets a phone call and abruptly leaves. I don't know. I don't know if he heard the cops were looking for him or what, but he just leaves. His wife, Nancy Sullivan.
Light on child support.
Well, she's there. I don't know if he had an ex-wife or something or what. But anyway, she goes and tells him, like, hey, Kevin had to split. We're going to need somebody else for me to manage tonight. And so they're like, well, Kevin was going to be a mystery guy. So they go to Kerry Von Erich, who was at the convention. They're like, hey, we want you to come out in a mask tonight. You are going to be woman's mystery opponent. You'll take the mask off once you get in the ring, but for the sake of the mystery, we want you to come out wearing the mask. And he's like, okay, yeah, I can do that, but I need this much money. We're like, all right, well, we got you. So they give him his money, and he's standing back in the hallway. I forget where the story was told the best, but I know it was like on the 605 Super Podcast at some point. Somebody come on and told this. So Kerry's in the hallway waiting to go out for his match. He's wearing the mask. And the great thing is there is a picture of this. I found the picture. It's on my hard drive somewhere. I got to find it and I'll share it with this episode at some point. Kerry Von Erich is standing in the hallway with the mask on, getting ready to go out with woman as her mystery wrestler. However, he's wearing one of his big ring robes that says Kerry in sequins across the back. So somebody comes up to him and goes, hey, Kerry, you're the mystery man. Yeah. Probably need to take that fucking coat off. Why? It's got your name on it. Does it? Yeah. Shit. He takes his coat off. A few minutes later, same person rolls up. He's got his coat back on. Kerry, why you got the coat on? I wear it to the ring. Yeah, but you don't need to wear it to the ring tonight. Why? It's got your name on it. Fuck. Oh, yeah. All right. So he takes the coat back off again. So this person checks on him a couple more times. He's standing there without the coat. He's standing there without the coat. His music plays, and instinctively, when he hears his music, he grabs the fucking coat, puts the sumbitch back on, and here he comes, coming to the ring with woman's mystery man, and he's wearing the Kerry Von Erich jacket. He's got the big tassels with the boots that say Texas Tornado on them and everything. Of course, everybody's out there laughing because they're like the mystery man, and he's got the Kerry jacket on. It's hilarious, but it's also sad at the same time, you know. Yeah. But that's where he was at this point, unfortunately. So coming out of that event, 1993, we're going in with Sports Channel Philadelphia, which is substantial. That's a big deal to be on Sports Channel Philadelphia. So we've got weekly ECW television. We're going to have Eddie Gilbert coming in booking, which means he's going to be coming in with kind of the Memphis North flavor of booking, as Doug Gilbert put it on Dangerous Conversations, and many people have said in the meantime. And when you got Eddie Gilbert coming in, we know that Paulie Dangerously won't be far behind because that's a friend of his. Paul's in the area. He's waiting for Jim Crockett to start this World Wrestling Network show that he's holding out on. We got Terry Funk coming in, which automatically leads to more credibility. We're going to start running Viking Hall, which will eventually become known as ECW Arena. After Paul Heyman, that will eventually lead to Joey Styles. We'll eventually start seeing guys like Sabu, the Tasmaniac, a very different Tommy Dreamer, not the Tommy Dreamer, sir, may I have another hardcore guy. We got a guy in fucking suspenders, coming out here first. We're going to have the Public Enemy are going to be showing up. And then a Shane Douglas who he still looks like the Shane Douglas we see in WCW teaming with Ricky Steamboat, fiery babyface Shane Douglas, but we're going to start calling him the franchise, and it's going to take him a little while to grow into that. It's going to take a little while for him to become the heel Shane Douglas we would all know and love down the road, but he's on his way. So, 92 is Todd Gordon trying to keep the doors open. January 93 is where the doors get kicked open, and, Eddie Gilbert is here to bring a taste of Memphis to Philadelphia. So that kind of sets the table, man. That's going to lead us to episode 1 of ECW television on Sports Channel Philadelphia. Still isn't Extreme yet. It's still going to be Eastern Championship Wrestling for a while. The modest Philadelphia independent that was born from the wreckage of Tri-States. Stevie Richards in the very first match. Ivan Koloff putting over Tony Stetson. Jimmy Snuka as our first champion, who loses it the next night to Johnny Hotbody. Super Destroyers just owning the fucking tag team belts throughout the year. Glenn Osborne's our TV champ going into 93, but don't get too used to that. And Mr. Sandman ends the year as the heavyweight champion. And what began with a jewelry store, pawn shop businessman who was a wrestling fan that wanted to try to keep wrestling alive in Philadelphia, begins with a bunch of bad ideas and weird venues and random title changes and managers everywhere, new commentators every week, and enough DQ finishes to make Richard Mulligan quit the podcast if he was doing it. It's a long way from the ECW that probably brought you here when you clicked on this. If you're not a longtime fan, you're like, well, what the fuck are we doing? I want to get Extreme. Well, it's going to take a little while, but we're going to get there. But again, like I said at the beginning, Brandon and I, our goal is we're going to have some fun along the way. There's some really good stuff in this first year of 93. There is some absolute bullshit in the first year of 93.
Absolutely.
And we're going to call them both. You know what I mean? We're going to, just like with the USWA show and the Power Pro show and everything that I'm involved with, we're going to put over the good stuff and we're going to have fun with the bad stuff. And
That's right.
We're going to try to make it fun enough that the good outweighs the bad, and you'll want to join us each week, because starting next week, it's going to be a watch along. We'll give you a little bit of context in the beginning. We'll watch the show and talk about it as we go through. We'll probably give you a little more on the backside, and then it's on to the next one. This will be the only show you ever watch that's all talking. That's our promise to you. And in the meantime, in between time, you will see bonus shows like my interview with Bay Ragney. I mentioned is going to drop next week. This comes out on Monday. You'll probably see that in the middle of the week. Again, very interesting conversation. Bay's just a great fucking guy, and he was there when all this was happening at Ground Zero. He was there for those.
I can't wait
meetings.
for that one.
Yeah, man. I can't wait for everybody to see it, and it gives a lot of context to what we're doing here. And the thing is, Bay is a great contact to have because he's working to get me in touch with Stevie Wonderful and a number of these other people. And I'm going to try to talk to as many of those people as we can. And the ones that we can't, I've got all these great interviews that Bay himself did that I can pull from, and we'll at least have these guys' more recent version of everything. So either way, we're going to get a lot of context from the people who were there. Again, this isn't just me and Brandon sitting down each week and just watching these shows and either making fun of them or just going, this is awesome. We're going, this is the shits. It's not that. We're wanting to legitimately review these shows, and we want you to be able to get something out of this. I mean, if you joined us here for episode 0, and God bless you, if you're here at the end, when we get there a few years from now, I hope that, you'll be able to say, man, this was a fun ride. These guys, I know them now, like by the time, and I think Brandon can tell you, like he's been on board with the USWA podcast, and, until just now, recently, in this past week, more or less. I mean, we've been friends via the podcast, and we would talk.
Right.
Like, you'd reach out, like, "Hey, I like this on this episode," or whatever. But like, you feel like you know me. I feel like I know you. Just the connection from listening to the podcast all the time. So
Right.
I hope that's the relationship we develop with the people watching and listening to the show, man. That's what we want, and we want your
Absolutely.
feedback. Tell us what you think about the show that we're watching. Tell us what you think about our show. What can we do better? What can we do less of, more of? I can't say we're going to do every bit of it, but we want it to be what people are going to enjoy. So we're going to go with what the majority says, majority rules, right? So,
Absolutely.
man, we're both very receptive to any feedback. I mean, me and Brandon was going to watch this shit anyway and hang out. So why not do it with all of you, right? So
Absolutely.
we're going to do this either way, whether there's 1 million listeners or 3. We're going to do it. But man, we would love to hear from you again. It tickles me to know that people are out there watching, and I like to hear what they think about it, whether they agree or they disagree, or hey, maybe you've got some insight we don't have. Bring it on, man. Bring it on, because we're all on this journey together. We're just trying to learn about ECW and how we got to where we got when it was all said and done. And
Absolutely.
That's the goal, man. We're planning on starting in 93 and going to the end in 2000. Now, can't promise we're going to jump ahead and go through all the WWE version of ECW. We may do a watch along like the one night stand events, because those were pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. We're going to do bonus episodes of like the events, but those will be like on Patreon. We probably won't put those in the main feed because a lot of the stuff's going to be covered in the episodes, but we'll figure all that out as we go along. Brandon,
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add here, man? How do you feel?
I feel great. I just wanted to point out, this is my first podcast. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. And, the way that I got here was literally just offered to help out on a show with Gene, and just kind of snowballed in the last week. So you guys will have to bear with me. And, there's going to be some growing pains and a little bit of understanding on my part that's going to go into this, and, when to talk, when not to talk, and stuff like that. So y'all just bear with me. I promise it'll get better. And I'm absolutely trying my best.
Yeah, man. Me and you did something last week just to get a feel for it, and I was tickled to death. And man, you've jumped in on some of these post-show things we do. You fit right in with the team here. Me and Rob and Scotty and everybody, and Josh and Richard. If you ever get a chance to do some stuff with them, you get it. That's the only way I can. That's the only way I can put it. Is you get it. And hey, join us for the ride. And who knows, man? You ever reach out and say, "I'll be willing to help," you better mean it, because
absolutely, because you could end up here.
Yeah, Brandon might have just meant, I'll send you a DVD or some shit. He might not even meant that. Next thing you know, he's a fucking co-host.
That's right.
I'm sure at some point, after many weeks of this, he's like, what the fuck am I doing? What have I signed up for here? Boy, 93 is rough, but that's half the fun sometimes.
It is.
I mean,
it is, man, but it's going to get better. And I'm so here for it, man.
Some of the worst episodes of USWA were some of the most fun, because I mean, there's running jokes that have come out of it. There's t-shirts and shit that have come out of it. And that's the thing that's fun to me, is like when I get a message from somebody and they reference something obscure that was said on the show that I didn't think anybody caught. Because every once in a while I'll just say little shit every now and again, just kind of pop myself. And somebody will message like, "Hey, when you said so-and-so," and I'm like, somebody got it. Hell yeah. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. And the fun is just getting started. We'll see you back here next Monday for episode 1 of ECW Television. I'm Gene Jackson. That is your soon to be favorite podcaster, Brandon Wheeler. And we will see you again next Monday. And Monday will no longer be known for Monday Night Raw. It's eventually going to be known for Extreme. But for right now, it's just going to be Monday Night Eastern. So let's enjoy it while we can. terrible at any of these things. Say something clever.
I got nothing, man. Love you guys. Thanks for being with us.
Blood on the canvas, blueprints in the dust. Back room roaring, broken teeth and rust. Chain link press, swing and miss. Call it pain, I call it this. Step in, step down, hear that floor shake now.